One, two, three, four, five. Testing, testing. All right, I think this thing is working. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things, honestly. It's been 3 months since my last update to myself here on my Cicerone Study and Adventure 2022. 3 months went by. Honestly, had a lot of distractions on the family side, on the work side. Just been really busy. Kept at it when I could, studying by continuing reading. But honestly, it was really slow. But now I finally have gotten my momentum back and I'm breaking out my OBS, uh, getting into trying to study OBS too. It's one of my technical things. Got my cartoon version of myself, got the normal version of myself, and got some updates. My progress report to myself here. All right, so what has happened? Finally, after 3 months, I have finished Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher. This book was pretty good, honestly. Yeah, 14 chapters. Read them when I could, when I'm on the road, when the son's family is sleeping, whenever I could fit it in. Finally finished that book. Um, yeah, the book, how would I summarize it? I have my Cliff Notes. Basically, the book is awesome at telling you the history of beer, whether it's beer itself as a beverage, where in the world it was made and consumed, and who made it, and kind of why they made it, but also the ingredients they used at different points in time, which are quite interesting. There might have been more variety in beer back in like BC times than there was in like the 1500s in a way, because there was no restrictions and then there were restrictions. But then again, loosening up again with like American craft beer movement, for example, a more modern thing that kind of shook up the hornet's nest and instigated creativity and adventuring. But other things about the book in the book were like talking about beer and pairing with food and how it's actually just as good, if not better, than wine when you're trying to find interesting pairings. There's actually a lot more flavor combinations that you can do with beer and food than you can with wine. Wine is kind of limited if you start to compare it. So that's kind of interesting to consider. Other things in the book, they talked about the global social networking aspects of it, whether it's beer related organizations, there's the Brewers Association, then there's the American Homebrewers Association, and then there's groups kind of aligned with the whole classifying and then studying and having standards in beer. Like there's the BJCP, beer judging, right? And then there's Cicerone, which is more what I'm studying for, which is kind of taking the BJCP guidelines and wrapping it with a little bit more of the product presentation to people and taking all the standards and putting, studying to it, which is kind of cool. Social media aspects, we have Beer Advocate and Rate Beer, which is just some of the sites where people could start to rate beer and talk about beer. But then there's social media specific versions like Untapped, which is what I use now with friends, checking beers, put your notes, put your rating, lots of interesting things. But then back to the food related or kind of creativity with beer is beer cocktails and other not just beer beverages. So they talk about hard seltzer, they talk about beer cocktails from hundreds of years ago that they were even making, which is kind of fun to learn about. And then you can read more about it in the book or online. So what else have I done since I just finished the book? I have also ventured into my new appreciation of beer. Let me switch to showing a little bit of my notes here. Let's see if I can pull those up. So first off, I have my task. Let me just get that done. So the task I just did is reading Tasting Beer, second edition. Just going to edit that and put that to completed. Shortly after, I will go back to my other tasks and pluck one up. I'm not sure what I want to read yet. Do I want to read Brewmaster's Table? This is probably a good book to read by Garrett Oliver, brewmaster of Brooklyn Brewery. I want to read about this because a lot of food pairings and other stuff in there. That could be good. What else do I have? I could switch topics and go into the draft beer quality manual. Maybe I'll do that. Shorter book too. Maybe I can get some technical knowledge there about the brewing equipment and delivery systems and maintaining them. Yeah, we'll see. One of those I'm going to read. Other than that, though, let's talk about so the beer styles. I've been really trying to hone in on. There's over 400 beer styles in scope for Cicerone Level 2. And so I put them in Excel and then I moved the Excel to SharePoint and I have all the examples by name and then by category that they're in. And then basically, let me see if I have a by style. So every style that's in here, there's, give or take 5 or so beers, right? And I wanted to try at least one beer of every style and not necessarily have all the hazy IPAs. Just find one, have it, and then jump to another style. Because my goal is I want to get more familiar with all the different styles. So what I did is I have a way of doing that. I'll try one beer in a style. I'll mark that as tried or yes. So in my formalizing of this, I've had 21 of the commercial examples so far. But then I'll take all the other beers in those same styles and I'll tag them as style tried. So maybe I haven't had that specific beer, but I've had a beer in a style. So let me move past those for now, right? And that's helping me chip away at the list. So out of 400 something, I'm down to 300 something. So I'm about a quarter of the way through. That's one of my, I'll call it homework assignments, right? And it's going well. Lots of beers to try. But then back on the other dimension, as I try these new beers, I'm realizing, hey, maybe in my home brewing hobby, I'll want to try to make one of these styles that I wouldn't have considered. So for example, I had this beer I really liked a while back, Schneider Weiss Aventinus Weisbach, right? Weizenbach. So I started putting together a clone recipe with online research and making my planned recipe there. So that's going to be kind of fun. So I'm actually trying to make a recipe to spec, not just a flavor or preference, right? Which will kind of help me sharpen my awareness of things like the SRM, the ABV, the history of that style, and yada, yada, yada. So this will be fun. So yeah, what else do I have? I have my notes here, things I wanted to touch on. So aside from the home brewing, being a little more style specific, having my the way I'm going to handle the studying, the books that are in my list, the commercial examples. Yeah, the other thing I fell off the tracks a bit was taking the oh, BJCP style guidelines, which I have here. Let me switch views again and kind of remembering, hey, I do want to read these every time I try a new style. I kind of was organized at first and then I stopped. But every time I try a new beer, I'm going to try to start learning about that specific beer and the style it's categorized in. So yeah, momentum is going to resume again, hopefully throughout summer and then into fall. I'll try to give myself a little more frequent updates, play around with OBS and maybe learn how to make it look a little more fun. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for your time. If you happen to stumble across this, and if you're also studying your Cicerone level 2, shoot me a message. I'd like to learn about other people's, how they're tackling this and also network with people. So yeah, thanks for your time. Until next time, there's cartoon version of myself. There's real version of myself. All right, I'm out.